Hey everybody, Brian Garcia, meteorologist, National Weather Service, San Francisco Bay Area, Monterey Bay regions. I think you've already heard about it, but let's talk about it a little bit. We've got an early July heat wave coming up. Let's get right into it here. So here are the key messages. We have some potentially deadly heat coming next week. Yeah, unfortunately, when it gets really hot like this, people do expire. And we don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen to anybody in our service area or across the nation. So we hope you take precautions now as you prep for the heat, especially in those interior regions, because this is going to be a prolonged heat event, really taking up the entire week. But for us, it's going to be kind of like a Tuesday through Friday thing with the potential of even lingering into the weekend after the 4th of July. So we also have fire weather concerns. We have some northerly winds, dry northerly winds coming in. Some weak ones on Monday, a little bit stronger on Tuesday morning, and then again some weak ones on Wednesday morning. But we're also going to have very dry, low relative humidities, dry conditions, especially during the peak of the day. And then on top of all that, we have dry fuels, and we'll talk about that. Because we can't do anything just onesie twosie, we always have to throw 3 or 4 things in there. Summer king tides are in place, so we're going to see some high tides, and we'll talk about that a little bit towards the end of this. And then, of course, cold ocean waters. So here's our weather risk outlook. The yellow is the lowest threat level in this matrix right now. Then it goes orange, red, and then that magenta level. And you can see that Wednesday time frame is where we're kind of hitting that magenta level, especially for the heat. That's going to be the hot areas for our region out there in the East Bay, interior valleys, as well as up in North Bay away from the immediate coast. But we've also got those fire weather concerns with the low RH too. So lots going on this coming week. With the heat, we have an excessive heat watch out. Again, this is Tuesday through Friday. It could be extended heat watches. Watches in general are really just saying that the conditions are favorable for this event to happen. It also means that the timing and the magnitude of the event are still a little uncertain. So we're going to refine this over the next few days, and then we'll end up issuing a heat advisory or an excessive heat warning that has yet to be determined. So let's look at some temperatures. We're just going to go through the week. This is Sunday morning. This is the Sunday morning lows across the area. Then we have the Sunday highs. Really just kind of normal summer type conditions there on Sunday. Monday, you can see those morning lows. Those minimum temperatures have come up a little bit from Sunday morning into Monday morning. And then those Monday highs, they start to creep up. So getting a little warmer, even down in Big Sur, Santa Cruz, right along the coast. Some of those areas are actually warming up. Get into Tuesday morning, those minimum temperatures, again, starting to warm up, especially in the hills, anything probably above about 500 to 1,000 feet. It's going to be hard pressed to cool off significantly overnight as the air mass that's rolling in really warms up. And then as we get into Tuesday, look at those temperatures popping up over the century mark. Concord out there right now, the forecast is 106. Even San Jose, 97, that's pushing the 100-degree mark. Pinnacles National Park, 106, that is a hot spot in our service area. But again, down at Big Sur and Santa Cruz, still relatively warm. In the city proper, Tuesday, look at that, 79 degrees, pushing 80 degrees in parts of the city. And then as we get into the minimum temperatures for Wednesday morning, you can see the Wednesday morning min-tees still relatively mild. You know, San Jose, look at that, 69 degrees as a minimum temperature. So not a lot of recovery overnight. Then we get into the maximum temperatures on Wednesday. Right now we have San Francisco for 81 degrees. It could be a little warmer, it could be a little cooler. The forecast, I mean, today's Friday. This is next Wednesday, so there's still some time to change. But wide spread 80s, 90s, and even into hundreds. The coolest places are going to be those west-facing beaches. So think of like Half Moon Bay, Point Reyes, places like that. Those are going to be the coolest places in our service area. Thursday morning, this 4th of July now, we've got really warm minimum temperatures. And again, especially up in the hills where it's not going to cool off significantly. Then 4th of July temperatures, we do tick down just a little bit in terms of temperatures, but still widespread 90s and very low hundreds. We start to cool off, especially right along the coast, as hopefully we get that marine influence in, but it really depends upon how this area of high pressure transits the region. If it slows down, the 4th of July could legit be hot again like Wednesday. Get into Friday morning, 5th of July, finally start seeing some relief in those early morning lows. And then as we get into Friday daytime highs, kind of like Thursday, but just kind of lingering in that warmth. So it's going to be very, very warm. As such, the heat risk really ramps up through the week because heat risk not only takes into climatology into account, but it also takes into the maximum temperature as well as the minimum temperature and the duration of an event. So you can see lots of those oranges, reds, and magentas. Those magentas, those purplish colors, are the highest level of heat risk. That means it's a very high heat risk for the entire population due to long duration heat with little to no relief overnight. And those overnight, those early morning minimum temperatures, they just aren't cooling off, especially up in elevation. So we're going to be looking at some potentially dangerous and deadly situations with heat. Let's talk about some fire weather type stuff. This is a loop of maximum humidity, and you can see the days go by there on the top. So the humidity down in the bay, right along the bay shoreline and along the immediate coast, not bad. But the humidities, once you get inland, they really start drying out. And remember, this is the max humidity. So you can go back, you can watch this loop over and over again. But let's look at the minimum humidity loop through. Look at all those reds and even some kind of, I guess, kind of purplish colors trying to creep into the northeast Napa County, for example, or even the eastern Santa Clara Hills out there in the Diablo Range. It's going to get very, very dry as we get into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So this is going to be a very dangerous time for fire weather conditions. But wind also plays a role. Oh, I should throw this in there. We do have safety graphics. There's the URL up top if you want to go grab some safety graphics and post them on your own social media feed. We definitely encourage people to do that. Share it with your friends, family, and neighbors, as well as your coworkers. Make sure that everybody stays safe. Let's look at the 24-hour max wind gust. So this is Tuesday. So what we're looking at is we are looking at Monday 11 p.m. to Tuesday 11 p.m. And you can see where those max wind gusts, and this is the mean, by the way. So this is right in the middle of all the models, taking the average essentially, right? And so out there across Napa, the Diablo Range, it's going to get a little breezy out there, and then again down in the Pinnacles Range and whatnot. And then if we look at the 90th percentile, so we're talking statistically kind of the higher end, the reasonable worst case scenario, you see those gusty winds there, 30s and 40 mile per hour, even some pushing 50 mile per hour up towards the Vaca Range of Napa County and out over Mount Diablo or Mount Hamilton and those areas. So we're going to be looking for potentially some really gusty winds with this as well. If this transpires, this would, for us, we would likely be looking at a red flag warning for Tuesday timeframe. But this is still pretty far out there. It's something we got to watch and see how the models congeal on a solution. And then getting into Wednesday, looking at the mean again for the average for the max wind gust, 11 p.m. Tuesday to 11 p.m. on Wednesday. Again, look at those winds across the East Bay Hills and down across the Pinnacles area. It's going to be very gusty, probably up in the 25 to 30, maybe even a little bit higher than that. So again, very breezy, very dry, like we saw in the relative humidity. So it's not going to be looking good. And so I'm going to rip through these pretty quick. I'll just orient you really quick. That blue squiggly line, that is observations through the year so far of our fuel moisture. So this is the energy release component, to be specific. And so the higher the blue line, the drier the fuels are and the more easily they can carry fire. So this is essentially North Bay is what we're looking at here. So very high up there on the chart. If we look at the Bay Marine, not as high up there, but it's towards that red line, which that red line's the max for this time of year. If we look at the Diablo and Santa Cruz Mountains, again, we're past that red line, very dry for this region, the Diablo and Santa Cruz Mountains. Once we get down to the Central Coast interior, much more towards that kind of background gray line, which is the average for this time of year. So that's a good sign that the fuels still haven't dried out a ton down in the Monterey San Benito region. And then Central Coast, again, along the coast of Monterey County, essentially for hanging around that average line, which is a good thing. So the farther north you go or east you go, the drier it is. Last thing we'll talk about is tides. These are the tidal predictions for the 30th through the 7th. And you can see those high tides and deep low tides too, by the way. Those high tides late at night, looking at 6.6, 6.73, 6.76, 6.71, and 6.56. Once we get above about 6.6, 6.7, we start thinking about coastal flood advisories, because these high tides can impact coastal roads in the bayside portions of Marin County. They can sometimes, even if they get high enough, they can work their way up into Petaluma and cause some localized flooding. And then, of course, the classic San Francisco Embarcadero can also have some flooding. So the summary, the takeaway here: hot conditions for the holiday week, extended duration of heat and poor recovery, so those warm overnights. Dry conditions for the holiday week, relative humidities in the teens and possibly even single digits, which is just ridiculous for this time of year. Fire concerns, of course. Any wind can fan flames pretty easily, and we'll get some wind each afternoon as the Earth's surface heats up. It can create its own little wind regime. So please don't have any open flames during this time, because unsecured fires can easily start uncontrolled fires, and that's a bad thing. We don't want any fires. No sparks, no fires. That's kind of the key here. And I know it's the 4th of July week, and I know it's tough to do for everybody, but as best you can, just don't use fireworks. It's just not a smart thing to do this coming week or any time during our fire season, because those fires can run fast, and it puts our first responders in harm's way, as well as puts our neighbors and our friends in harm's way too. So it's an exceptional danger of wildfires due to fireworks this year. So please be safe. And of course, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and be good to one another. See you, everybody. Bye.